Call your sponsor. Call your sponsor. Call your sponsor.
Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor. Call.
Welcome back to another episode of Bitch Call Your Sponsor. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Misty.
Let's start out with primary purpose.
Primary purpose is
for Misty and Sam to grow our friendship and maybe help others. Yeah. Maybe. We'll see. All right. My topic for today is just maybe a little controversial. The Pacific Group.
Ooh.
So let me do, what is the Pacific Group?
Mm-hmm.
Their definition on their website: the Pacific Group is a tightly knit group of recovering adults who are typically professionals and take recovery very seriously. The group is filled with those who genuinely are practicing a program of recovery that is founded upon helping others. I had not even heard of the Pacific Group until I got out to Los Angeles. And this is just my experience, strength, and hope with it. So, please seek your own research and whatever you don't like or don't, whatever. There's all my preamble. But my experience with it was that they said that you could not women had to wear dresses, men had to wear suits. And that you could not curse from the podium, and that if you were taking any kind of medicine as far as like antidepressants, that was not considered you being sober. And there's a lot of other stuff said about it, but I don't personally have experience, so I don't want to talk on that.
You mean the gossip?
Yeah, the gossip about many things. And that's, I can only talk about my experience with it. And my goal here, the reason I'm speaking about it is I seek to restore AA to a healthy organization where no faction within the fellowship may seek to impose its will upon the rest of us. And that this group, Pacific Group, I think would be great on its own and people could go to it, but having it fall under the AA umbrella, I think is dangerous to AA. There, I'm going to be quiet. Your thoughts?
Okay, so I have some experience. I went to one meeting, and it was widely attended. I think they boast that it's the largest meeting in the world. I think is what they have billed it and or marketed as. Not sure 100 if that's a true statement, or if it's just because it's like, it's similar to like all natural or clean beauty, if it's like that kind of similar thing. I was actually afraid going because I heard so many things. I actually remember pulling up and thinking that it was a whole ordeal. And I think it's a big Wednesday meeting onto Sunset. And I thought there was valet parking actually, but there wasn't.
What? Okay.
There were just parking attendants directing you where to park because, of course, they had reserved spaces for the VIP, or should I say the more important group members, shall I say. I believe their group is run off of what's called a steering committee, which my experience has been it's been very rare that I've seen that in meetings where it's a select few group of people that are then, I think, apparently bringing it back to the group conscience. I'm not really sure how that works. I did read about the AA group, the pamphlet. I love my pamphlets. There's a little tiny, like 2-sentence paragraph on steering committee, and I'm still not really clear what that is as far as a group situation. And so I did go to the meeting. People looked well dressed and put together, and There it was very social. I felt like I was in a time warp almost, and I didn't necessarily feel welcome per se. I almost like felt like I was going to like some convention or something, like a professional convention, not a 12-step meeting per se, and everyone was doing something really, where no one was really focused is how people kind of occurred to me. I met some people from friends there, and we found some seats in the back because everything was reserved basically. The other experience I had is when I was in LA and a different part of LA, and somebody was in a meeting and they were clearly having some sort of an episode. And they were a former member, and this woman was directed by her sponsor. She apparently had 3 years of sobriety with medicine. I believe it was an antidepressant that was prescribed by a physician for her mental stuff, and was directed by a sponsor to stop taking the medication that was prescribed by a physician. And she was losing her gourd, and she could not stay sober and looked like she was not doing very well. She didn't sound very well either when she shared. So those are my two kind of like experiences. And then I've heard of a lot of things.
Right. And me too. Like, I've heard of so many rumors, but I like how you shared, and that's what I'm going to do is just stick to my experience with the Pacific Group, which is the reason I think it should be its own thing from AA. It does not represent AA. Is that one? It seems to have a leader. I know the leader passed, but that was definitely part of their thing, and that's the opposite of what AA literature says.
Yep.
And then the other part is that, telling women to wear dresses. Even when I was asked to speak somewhere, they were like, and please wear a dress. I was like, I'm not wearing a dress. And they were like, well, then you can't speak. They told me not to curse. I was like, I curse. And just none of that goes along with our big book. But one of the biggest things is what you just said, which is the medicine. It's very clear in our literature. And oh my God, I went and looked up a pamphlet and I linked it. So that'll be in our show notes about medication and how we are not doctors.
Yes.
And that, it is dangerous in that respect, and it is irresponsible.
Yes.
No one in AA, where sometimes didn't even graduate high school, much less college, much less have their PhD, should be directing you as to whether you need to be taking your antidepressants or not. It's just not for anybody in the rooms to speak about your HIPAA violations. It's just so incredible to me, the gumption. But one experience was going to a meeting with a woman, and her husband, I never met the husband, but they had a couple of kids, and they both got sober in the Pacific Group, and we're very grateful for all the help that the Pacific Group gave them and got them on their feet. And her husband was directed to stop taking his medication that he took as an antidepressant prescribed by a doctor. And 6 months later, he took his own life. And this woman was left with 3 kids and on her own. And that's just my direct experience. Like, there's no way around that, It's not a rumor. And the second one was going to, when I first moved here, they had those like morning calls. Have you heard about those? They had these morning calls. Yeah. And this one guy was like really big on the morning calls, and everyone wanted to be on it. I was like, what is going on? I quickly was like, I am not. This is not for me. And went to this very lovely Bel Air home. And anyway, the guy he had a back operation and was in so much pain, but was directed to not take any medicine. And he ended up taking his own life,
Ugh.
and wrote a note to the wife left behind to not let anyone know that's what happened and to say it was a heart attack.
Whoa.
So that he wouldn't be in trouble with the Pacific Group. And I'm like, okay, she already had enough on her hands losing her husband to have to lie to everyone in her life on top of it to keep up his reputation. Again, this is my direct experience. I am not doing rumors. I there's plenty of them. Go look it up. But this is just my exact direct experience with it.
It pains me. Because and to your point, this bleeds into other meetings where I do hear, from the neck up, nothing but mood or mind altering from the neck up, and it's like, I know it's directly from, because that's where I heard it. And it's like in that from the neck up, mood and mind altering substances is, the antidepressant and those types of things, which to your point, we are not qualified. Nobody, even if it is a physician, legit M.D, PhD, whatever, psychiatrist, in the meeting, if they are not my prescribing physician or the prescribing physician of their sponsee or anyone else in the group, they have no business, because they do not know the medical history. They do not know any of the other things that are involved or may be involved. So stuff like that, it's interesting that I'm glad that thank you for reading that from their site. I forgot they had a site. But what's really resonating is this tightly knit and serious, right? It's this like, it's, because that's how it lands. It landed like I was an outsider when I went. I did not feel welcome. Yes, there were people greeting, but they were not present in their bodies. It felt very robotic and Stepford
wives. Yes.
They were directed to stand here, do this, look them in the eye. You know what I mean? Like, that was the energy that I got, that they were robotic and they weren't, they were like almost looking over their shoulders for the approval stamp of whomever, and it's interesting because, when we get to actually working the steps and working a program, like serious, in quotes, sarcastically, program, it talks about for our basic instincts for sex, security, emotional and financial, and society. And it's interesting. Everything that we're talking about, what's resonating right now is this societal instinct of how I appear to others. And that's ultimately how cults, yes, there was a leader dead, and, it was his meeting. He started it. There's a direct lineage back to Bill and Bob, and that was, everyone knew what that lineage was and how that related to the book and and this one and that story, and they were sponsees and and so it's like it just like solidified. Yeah, I'm with the winners. I'm in this group, and they're direct descendants of Bill. And I'm like, yeah, we all are. And my branch may not be so attached, but like at the end of the day, like it's not about saying I'm coming from this blue blood situation. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's almost like so much of the principles of AA are, we don't put Bill and Bob on a pedestal, that this is a spiritually divine program. Like, Bill was struck sober and had like a spiritual experience, and Dr. Bob was just humble, and they would not want to see their pictures on every single wall in every single AA room. It was just a divine inspiration that lightning bolt maybe came from through other people before them, but they were the ones who wrote it down, and now we're all going with this. So one person, a lineage, just ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. And this whole thing about direction, sponsor direction for me never floated. Listen, and that's my experience, right? Like I get it. I see, I heard someone, in fact, the other day sharing that they actually needed that type of sponsorship, but with all of these layers, it does seem like it could qualify as a cult.
Sponsor.
Call you sponsor. Call you sponsor. Call you sponsor. Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
New episode
Call
tomorrow.
your
Send us
sponsor.
an email, bcysponsor@gmail.com.